Rev up your engines! Well, as you know, I'm not a fan of these yearly emissions tests. Years ago, the Canadians did a study. Over $1 billion was wasted on unnecessary repairs. Well, these people are in Connecticut. They're trying to get their car inspected. They spent $2,500 already, and it still won't pass the test. So let's see what's going on here. As you can see, it's a Ford Fusion Titanium EcoBoost. We'll start it up. It runs perfectly fine, but there it is, the evil check engine light, so it will not pass the emissions test. And as I said, they've already spent over $2,500. The people say, well, you got to road test it, bring it back in 100 miles, 5-10 minutes, and the light came back on. So let's check it out and see what's going on. So let's plug it in and move the seat back to short. Intelligent diagnosis. It's like I'm gambling at the slot machine, right? Well, at Gamble got the right year Fusion and everything. You turn the key on, and it's going to start checking things. And look at all the things it can check. Here we go. Smart scan. Now, it won't pass inspection. Hey, this car's got mileage on it. It's got 200-something thousand miles. Don't care about the ABS. What we're going to start out with is, these are all the OBD codes here. We're going to start with the PCM. It's running 2 lean on bank 1. Underboost with the turbocharger. Misfire in cylinder number 3. Misfire on startup. And bank 1 air-fuel ratio imbalance. What I call it continuous memory problems. They're problems that are very serious. Happens all the time. Well, we'll start out with, it's 2 lean on bank 1. Well, bank 1 also includes cylinder number 3. So there's a problem in the car on bank 1. So let's look at the data for bank 1. You can see this engine is 1 because bank 1, you can see it's 2 degrees 1. This stays much lower. So the bank 1 camshaft is actually worn. And I can feel a slight roll going on here, uneven at idle. Now, you can see bank 1, the exhaust gas oxygen sensor. The data is way off. This is sensor 1, right near the engine. See, everything else so far is blue, meaning that data is good. The injectors, you can see them all. They don't have any errors. Nothing wrong with the injectors. But you can see again, on bank 1, the camshaft, it moves around. The bank 1 cam is obviously warm with 200-something thousand miles. It might not be bad enough to put the check engine light on. But the long-term fuel trim on bank 1 is 2969. That is bad. Definitely a problem with the fuel trim. Even though it's blue at 29%, that's enough to trip codes. It's misfiring. Got 118 in the last cycle. And you can see the spark advance is also jumping all over the place. 7, 10, 6, 14. Shows that the timing chain is obviously worn, which is no surprise with this kind of mileage. So $2,500 worth of work was done at 2 Ford dealers and 1 independent dealers, and none of them get this thing to pass. So let's go under the hood, okay? This is a 4-cylinder EcoBoost engine. It's got a turbocharger. It only has 4 cylinders. And all this stuff is plastic. The engine's running lean. Since it's 4-cylinder, it only has one thing. And the data coming off the number 1 oxygen sensor is really bad. And I can definitely feel a misfire. And it keeps talking about number 3, so let's check number 3. So we'll take the intake off so we can access the spark plug. And we'll check the spark plug. And what do we find? Well, if you look at this, basically we find that morons have been working on the car. These are the original spark plugs. They have never been changed, ever. Now, she's been charged for numerous spark plugs. Let's just pull out another, see if they're all exactly the same. Off we go. And lo and behold, this one's never been changed either. It's all worn out. Now, not as badly as this, but still, she's paid to have them changed. The people just didn't do their work. So now you can see the difference. See how this is all worn out? You can see, here's the normal gap. This is all way too much. These have never been changed. These are already coated. You don't put any coating on them. If you do, they won't be torqued right. Put all 4 of them in. So we're putting it all back together again with the new spark plugs, tightening all the bolts up. Now make sure you get all the screws on tight, especially on the duct work. We don't want any air leaks. Now we'll start it up and see what happens. And miracle of miracles, gee, the engine isn't rattling around and shaking like it was. So let's shut the hood and reset the codes. So for speed, I'm going to use this to reset it. Erase. You can see the check engine lights disappeared. And we'll take it for a little spin. Well, I can tell right off it's running better. It's not misfiring. Now, yes, the engine is worn. We can tell by the camshaft data. And it shifts a little bit rough. But what they want is it to pass the emissions not turn the check engine light on. We hope that this does it, because if not, the engine is relatively worn and it may just not be able to make it without being rebuilt. But it does run a lot better. It's not doing the shaking it did before. I'll drive it around a good 15-20 minutes and see what happens. Now the check engine light never came on. You can see it's not on at all. I'm going to look at the data though, just to see what's happening. Now the short-term fuel has gone down to 7, but the long-term's 29. That stays. So we're going to disconnect the battery and reset stuff for that later. And the sensor that was way off before is now only off a tiny bit, so that's a good thing too. So we're going to disconnect the battery cable to get rid of any kind of permanent code, and let's stay off for about 5 minutes. We're going to try every trick on the book because, man, with 200-something thousand miles, that's generally the lifespan of these cars. With the GDI pressured injectors, turbochargers, all that stuff, it just wears these engines out. And we know by the cam data the engine is worn. We're just trying to get it to run efficiently enough so they can get the car inspected and drive it legally down the road, which may or may not be a possibility. Only time's going to tell on that, but at least when they had it fixed last time at the Ford dealer, they said drive it around for a while. In 5 minutes the check engine light come on. Well, it doesn't come on yet, so that's a good sign, but I'm still worried that this is so far worn that it's not going to pass. Plus, with this GDI system that equilibrates itself as you drive, it could take a week or two of driving for this thing to set it back so that it will pass. And even then, it might run too lean. That's a problem that a lot of these GDI systems get as they age. They have a tendency of running too lean. They're made to run lean for good gas mileage, but then when they get older, they run so lean, they trip the lean code because a lean engine runs a little hotter, so it pollutes more. And even though it's actually running good, it won't pass the stupid test that the government has decided we have to have in all our cars. So we waited, we'll put the terminal back on, and time will tell us if it's going to pass the inspection. It runs a heck of a lot better. You can see it's not shaking as much, but only time's going to tell with the inspection, because at this mileage, 200-something thousand, this is pretty much on the edge of bye-bye time for this particular engine design. Heck, I see these engines go out at 90,000 miles. These people obviously took care of the vehicle, but it doesn't matter how well you take care of a little bitty engine. With GDI injection and turbocharger, it is going to wear out faster. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Bagger Quarry says, I want to buy a Mazda 3 2005 for my first car and just drive it till it drops. Well, not a bad idea. If at all possible, try to get an old Mazda 3 that had a standard transmission. It's the automatics that were the weakest points. They had those Jatco automatic transmissions back in those days. Mazda no longer uses Jatco. Most of them are Aisin transmissions. They have affiliation with Toyota. Toyota owns 20% of Mazda or something. Who knows? Deals like tentacles and Occupy. You can find a standard transmission one, but even if you got to buy an automatic, if it runs okay, what the heck, drive it till the wheels fall off. I've had customers buy Mazdas used, cheap, drove them for years. They got their money's worth out of them. They could be a good decision. Solo Rider says, Scotty has answered none of my questions. Well, you should ask a question. Solo Rider, I'd answer it. You know, I get so many questions, they go flying through, so don't think I don't answer them. You got to be persistent. There's a lot of people watching this stuff. Inglorious D says, my 2013 Ford Fusion smells like gas in the cabin when I run the AC. I got a video, does your car smell of gasoline? Watch it. It'll show you absolutely every positive thing that could be causing you to smell gasoline when you turn on the AC. Now, the AC is sucking air in from the cowling below your windscreen, so that means generally something under the hood is leaking gas. Look at all the hoses. The fuel hoses are rubber. A lot of times they'll start to seep. Make sure they're not seeping. The fuel injectors are plastic with rubber O-rings. Sometimes they leak. Look, if you see, let's say you got a 4-cylinder engine and 3 of the fuel injectors are dirty, but one of them's whistle clean, check the clean one, because gasoline's a good solvent. It will often clean them. You see a real clean area, that's generally where the gasoline is leaking from. Now, if you can't see anything, a lot of times it's just gasoline vapor. Check the evap canister. Evap canister is what gets rid of the gasoline fumes in your car, and it's supposed to purify it, and then only air comes out. When they break, they leak, and then you smell gasoline. So go to that canister. You might see some hoses that come off, or maybe it's just ruined and it's full of gasoline, so now you smell it. So a lot of times it is the evap canister, and you won't see it because that's gasoline vapor, not liquid. So you'd want to look for that too. Car Cam Clip says, why don't you wear a wedding band? I'm a mechanic. Don't want to wear rings. Because when you're working on a car, if you're messing with 12-volt electricity, you can have your finger touch all kinds of stuff. It's only a finger. You can stick your tongue on a battery. Might not taste good, but it won't hurt you. 12 volts doesn't hurt you. If you got a ring on that conducts electricity, you get between positive and negative, the ring. And that thing can get so hot, it can burn your finger. A ring might get caught in a fan belt or something, grab you and pull you in. That's why I don't wear a ring. If you are working on cars, don't wear necklaces. You're dangling over and everything's spinning, you get caught and it chokes you in. You don't want to wear anything that's dangerous if you're working on cars. It's a good idea also. You see most mechanics, you know, they got short sleeve shirts. Well, if you got a real long sleeve shirt that hangs down, they can get caught too. I also wear gloves, so my hands aren't dirty. See, they're not dirty. Years ago, my wife got me medical gloves to work on cars because I used to work on a lot of diesels. And the diesel would stain your hands in the winter. You couldn't get it off. So with the gloves, and then my wife lets me touch her because my hands are clean. Strangely enough, she lost the engagement ring. The diamond fell out of it somewhere between here and Tennessee. If anybody finds this diamond on the road, return it to my wife. It's disappeared. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.